I'm Vera, and today I'm excited to share a concept that's very near and dear to me, and actually one I've been able to put into practice. So please bear with me because this may be the most Silicon Valley spiritual thing I've ever said. But one of the things that really excites me is the connection I found between the chakra system and the OSI model. And yes, if you know what that is, I fully understand that at first glance, these two things sound like they should never be in the same sentence. But as I explain more, I think you'll get what I mean, or you'll start to follow along. So, understanding that one system is spiritual and energetic, and the other is technical and network based. But this is why I created Zen Tech. Zen Tech is my way of using technology as a language to understand energy, consciousness, and the human system in a more grounded way. So let's start simple as I define these two separate systems. So we are familiar with the chakra system. It's a framework and it's used to describe energy centers in the body, each chakra connecting to a different part of our human experience. Grounding, creativity, personal power, love, communication, intuition, and spiritual connection. Then, on the technical side, the OSI model, which stands for Open Systems Interconnection, is a framework used in technology to describe how data moves through a network. It has 7 layers, starting with the physical hardware, cables, moving up through the logical layers until information reaches the very topmost layer, which is the application layer, where the user experiences the information or the output, and that's you and me. So the chakra system describes how energy moves through the human system, and the OSI model describes how data moves through a network system. Different worlds, different languages, but a very similar pattern that's hard to ignore. And both are layered systems that both rely on flow. And both definitely require each layer to function clearly for the full system to work. See, in Zen Tech, I see the chakra system almost like sacred human network architecture. So if you don't mind, let's switch over to my slide so I can walk you through the connection layer by layer. Okay, as you can see with my slide, I visually represent what the chakra system breaks down to on the left column or left-hand side of the slide and the OSI model on the right-hand side of the slide. And you can see that there's a really cool way that these kind of match up. And you can see that basically the chakras are represented in the human body. But as I always point to my theory of how energy moves like data, there's a definite sequencing that happens here that's hard to ignore. Instead of just looking at that picture, let's actually switch over to the next slide. That way I can walk you through the connection layer by layer. So starting at the bottom with the root chakra connects to grounding, safety, stability, and the physical body. This correlates with the physical layer, as I mentioned, of the OSI model. And that comprises the cables, hardware, electrical signals, and physical connection. Because honestly, if the cable's unplugged, that network's not going to work. And if I'm ungrounded, my energy system does not work very well either. So from an advanced spiritual technology standpoint, step one, you plug yourself back in or you ground yourself so that you have a system that is working in harmony or harmoniously. Then we move to the sacral chakra. The sacral chakra relates to creativity, emotion, flow, and connection. This connects or correlates with the data link layer, which is about local connection and making sure data can move between directly connected devices. To me, this feels like the energetic layer of relational flow. You ask yourself, how are we connecting? Is the signal clean? Is there harmony in the exchange? Next is the solar plexus chakra. The solar plexus relates to confidence, identity, personal power, and direction. This aligns with the network layer, where data is routed and directed across networks. And I love this comparison because the solar plexus is where we ask, where am I going? What path am I choosing? Am I moving from my own center, or am I being routed by everyone else's expectations? Quick spiritual networking joke. Check your default gateway, please. Okay, only my fellow nerds would get that, but that joke aside, let's move on. Let's move on to the heart chakra. And the heart chakra relates to love, compassion, balance, and connection. This aligns with the transport layer. It's responsible for reliable delivery of data from one point to another. To me, the heart is where true energetic exchange happens. It's not just about sending energy, it's about whether the exchange is received, trusted, and coherent. So the heart is a layer of connection integrity. Then we move on to the throat chakra. The throat chakra relates to voice, truth, expression, and communication. This pairs with the session layer, which establishes and maintains communication between systems. And that feels really aligned because the throat is where we open the channel. It's where we begin the conversation. It's where we express, this is my truth, this is my signal, this is what I'm here to say. Then we move on to the third eye chakra, and the third eye relates to intuition, perception, insight, and inner vision. This connects with the presentation layer, which translates and formats data so it can be understood. And that's such an amazing and beautiful parallel because the third eye helps us interpret meaning. It's not just receiving information, it's translating the signal. Here we can ask, what am I sensing? What does this mean? What's the deeper pattern beneath what I'm seeing? And last but not least, we finally arrive at the crown chakra. The crown chakra relates to higher consciousness, spiritual connection, and our connection to source or the greater field. Now, this aligns with the application layer where the user finally experiences and receives the highest presentation of that information. And in the energetic system, the crown is where we experience connection to higher awareness. It's where the whole system opens into something greater than the individual self. So hopefully that all made sense in sort of connecting how these two systems that shouldn't be relatable at all comes together. So after explaining all this, you might be wondering, why does this even matter? What does this all mean? Well, I think I explained at the beginning of the video that I actually put this theory into practice, or what I'm explaining or elaborating on. And that's actually through my own light work, my own energy work, and it's called co-session. And co-session was a term I coined to describe having a energetic session with two or more people. Obviously, in a session, you need two people, but it's collaborative. And that's why I call it co-session, because it's not just a one-way, a unidirectional way of assisting or supporting someone. It's not a reading, but it's a collaborative energy exchange that allows for information from the quantum field to come through. It's really amazing because I get to see this in real life practice. It's not just a theory, and it's actually been very amazing how much people feel this and actually receive and understand the different energetic nuances of what happens when you actually sense energy in this format. But to go a little further on why this matters, it matters because it gives us a familiar way to understand something that can sometimes feel abstract. And when we talk about chakras, energy, intuition, or spiritual connection, it can feel really hard to explain it in everyday language. But when we compare it to technology, something structured, layered, and functional, it helps us to see that energy flow is not random. There's actually an architecture to it. And when energy starts to make sense through the language of data, we can stop treating it like something vague and start working with it much more intentionally. Just like data can be routed, filtered, protected, transmitted, translated, and received, our energy, our own energy field can also be grounded, cleared, directed, expressed, interpreted, and connected. This is where this becomes more than just theory and an interesting comparison. it becomes a very practical way for us to understand ourselves and how we work with our own energy. If I understand how data moves through a network, I can use that familiar framework to better understand how energy moves through me. I can ask, where is my signal strong? Where is it blocked? Where am I routing my attention? What am I allowing into my field? And what am I transmitting out into the world? So this is where Zen Tech really resonates for me, not because spirituality needs to become technology, but because technology can give us a language to recognize patterns that already exist in consciousness, energy, and a connection. That way, we can start to realize that maybe the energy system is not as mysterious as we thought. Maybe it's much more beautifully organized than that. And maybe we're all just walking around with our own sacred network architecture within. So, anyway, I'm Vera. This is Zen Tech, bridging spirituality and technology to make energy and light work easier to understand and apply to everyday life. I'd like to get your thoughts on what I just presented. So please feel free to comment, like, subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more about how I put and fuse spirituality and technology together. Until next time, thanks for listening. Feel free.